Welcome to Life Stories, where the most ordinary lives hide the deepest battles. Imagine losing not just a partner, but the very meaning of family over something as simple as a dog. How far would you go to protect the child you love when the person who should be your strongest ally turns into your greatest threat? This isn't just a story about a custody fight. It's about silence shattered by courage, love tested by betrayal, and a truth so powerful it changes everything. Stay with us, because what happens next will challenge everything you thought you knew about family and strength. Now, let's step into Emma and Noah's world, where every quiet moment holds a secret waiting to be told. Emma stood alone in the dim kitchen light, her pajamas clinging to her like a fragile shield against the cold reality unfolding around her. The soft hum of the refrigerator was the only sound breaking the heavy silence. Across the room, Jake zipped up a suitcase with the precision of a man who had rehearsed this moment countless times, detached, resolute, and eerily calm. But this was no business trip. This was the end. He wasn't coming back. Jake's words hit her like a blow, sharp and hollow. "I'm taking Max. You get Noah." Max, the golden retriever who had been more than a pet, more than family. Max, who had chased their son around the yard, who had curled up at the foot of their bed, whose joyful bark had once filled this house with warmth. And now Jake claimed him as if he were just luggage. No discussion, no goodbye, just those cold final words. Emma's heart fractured in silence, her mouth opened to scream, to plead, to argue, but no sound came. Instead, a new voice pierced the stillness. Diane, Jake's mother. She stood in the doorway, her fake pearls gleaming under the harsh kitchen light, a smug smile playing on her lips. "Well," Diane said with venom masked as humor, "at least the dog's trained." The room echoed with cruel laughter, as if Emma and Noah were broken toys discarded on the shelf. Noah sat in the next room, headphones on, oblivious to the crumbling world around him. His small hands held a crayon drawing of the three of them, under a giant sun, holding hands, a simple image now shattered by reality. Emma turned away, clutching that drawing like a lifeline, making a silent promise to protect her son from the coldness seeping into their lives. She would be his shield. Let Jake take Max. Let Diane think she won. But Noah, he was hers, and she would fight to keep him safe, no matter what it took. But Emma carried a secret. One she buried deep beneath years of smiles and quiet compliance. Jake's charm was a mask. Behind closed doors, his warmth turned to ice. The late-night insults disguised as jokes, the subtle control of money, parenting, and even the thermostat. The way Noah learned to stop crying, to be tough, because boys don't cry. Emma's silent endurance had come at a price, a slow erasure of her spirit, and the quiet breaking of her son's. And now, with Jake gone, the battle was just beginning. What happens when the person who should protect you becomes the one you fear? When the house that was meant to be home feels like a prison? And what if the child's voice, the one so often silenced, is the key to breaking free? The courtroom awaited, but the greatest surprise was yet to come. It was not Emma's strength alone that would change their fate, but Noah's courage, unexpected, raw, and undeniable. Was love always supposed to come with conditions? And how far would a mother go to protect the truth hidden behind closed doors? The moment that Noah spoke in court didn't just shatter the silence. It shattered everything they thought they knew about family. This is just the beginning. What Noah revealed would turn their lives upside down and force the world to finally listen. And the fight for justice had only just begun. The courtroom was suffocating, sterile. Walls painted the color of faded hopes, chairs rigid as the truths Emma had long tried to hide. She sat beside Noah, his small hand trembling slightly in hers, a silent anchor in the storm of adult power plays. Across the room, Jake leaned back in his chair, a practiced smile masking the man who had abandoned them without a glance. Behind him, Diane's eyes darted nervously, the smug facade cracking just enough to show a flicker of doubt. For years, Emma had lived beneath Jake's charm, the public face of a loving husband and father. But behind closed doors, his warmth dissolved into something colder, an icy grip on her life and Noah's. The insults disguised as jokes, the dismissal of her feelings as hysteria, the quiet gaslighting that left her questioning her own reality. She had hidden these scars, not just to protect herself, but to shield Noah from a world that often failed to see the quiet violence of emotional abuse. Now, faced with the prospect of losing Noah, Emma knew silence was no longer an option. She had spent nights combing through text messages Jake thought were hidden, saved emails where Diane tried to manipulate the narrative, every piece of thread in the tapestry of deceit they'd woven. Yet it was Noah's voice, the one so often muted by fear, that held the power to unravel it all. When the judge called on Noah, the room fell into a hush so deep it seemed to swallow sound. 9 years old, with wide, earnest eyes, Noah stood clutching a notebook, their rehearsed script, and yet his words came from a place far beyond preparation. He spoke slowly, each sentence carving through the courtroom's cold veneer. "My dad sent me messages I wasn't supposed to see," Noah began, voice catching with the weight of truth. "He said he can't wait to be done with me, that I'm useless, that I cry like my mom." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Diane's hand flew to her mouth. Jake's face went pale, jaw clenched so tight it looked like it might crack. But Noah pressed on. "He says I'm a problem, but I'm not. My mom helps me when I'm scared. She's strong, and I'm not useless." Emma felt tears blur her vision, not of sadness, but of fierce pride. Her son was reclaiming his story, breaking the silence that had chained them for years. The judge leaned forward, eyes kind but resolute. "Thank you, Noah. That was incredibly brave. Is there anything else you want to share?" Noah's voice softened but never faltered. "I don't want to live in a place where I feel like I'm a problem. I just want to feel safe." In that moment, the weight of years lifted, replaced by a stark clarity. This was not just a custody battle. It was a fight for dignity, for love without conditions, for a future free from shadows. But the victory was not guaranteed. After Noah's testimony, the courtroom tension shifted. Jake's lawyer demanded a recess, eyes darting wildly as if scrambling for a strategy. Diane's smile vanished. She looked smaller, trapped in a game that had spiraled beyond her control. Jake himself sat silent, no longer the polished man who had manipulated so many. Yet, as Emma breathed in the fragile hope, a darker truth gnawed at her. A secret Jake had buried deeper than anyone suspected. A secret that, if unearthed, could shatter their fragile world completely. One evening, while packing the last of their belongings into the modest apartment, Emma found a hidden folder on Jake's old laptop, a folder labeled with a date, long after he had supposedly moved on. Inside were emails and photos, revealing a double life, a side Jake had hidden even from Diane. Names, places, faces she didn't recognize. Proof of deception far beyond their broken marriage. Emma's mind raced. Could this revelation turn the tide once and for all, or would it unleash a chaos they were not prepared to face? More importantly, how much of this darkness would Noah have to see? Was she ready to pull her son deeper into the storm for the sake of truth? Her heart ached with the weight of impossible choices. Protect Noah's innocence, or arm him with every piece of truth in this bitter fight for their future. Could justice be found without breaking the child she was trying to save? That night, Emma lay awake, haunted by memories and the looming unknown. She realized that winning custody might just be the beginning of another kind of battle, one fought not in courtrooms but in shadows, whispers, and the fragile spaces where love and fear collide. Noah, ever perceptive, caught her restless gaze and whispered, "Mom, I want to help. I want the truth, even if it's hard." In his voice, Emma heard both hope and heartbreak. The road ahead was uncertain, tangled with risks and pain. But in that fragile moment, she understood that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was choosing to face it together. What would you do if uncovering the truth meant risking everything you held dear? How far would you go to protect a child caught in the crossfire of secrets? The next chapter of Emma and Noah's fight is about to unfold, and the shadows lurking in Jake's past threaten to consume them all. Will they survive the storm, or will the darkness finally win? Stay with us. The truth is only just beginning to surface. The courtroom's verdict echoed in Emma's ears long after the judge's gavel fell. Full custody was awarded to her. Supervised visitation for Jake, a stipulation for family therapy and ongoing monitoring. The words felt both heavy and liberating, a legal victory, yes, but more so a declaration of survival. Noah sat beside her, quieter than usual, his wide eyes absorbing every detail of a world that now seemed both unfamiliar and hopeful. They left the courthouse hand in hand, stepping into the sunlight as if emerging from a long winter. The days that followed were a fragile rebuilding, threads of laughter weaving back into their lives, small moments that stitched together a new normal. Noah began drawing again, vibrant comics where Emma was a fearless heroine wielding waffles and truth like shields. He slept through the night, no longer needing the sanctuary of her bed. His questions returned, about dinosaurs, stars, and the infinite mysteries of the universe, each one a spark of renewed curiosity. Emma found herself breathing deeper, working more, saving for piano lessons and soccer cleats, things that once felt like luxuries, now whispered promises of a future. She joined a book club, met women who bore their own scars but carried strength in quiet smiles. She was learning to live again, not just survive. But even in freedom, shadows lingered. Jake had disappeared almost overnight. No calls, no texts, no attempts to appeal. His lawyer dropped him. Diane's ominous presence faded into silence. It was as if the storm had passed, leaving behind a calm that felt both peaceful and painfully empty. Emma often found herself wrestling with conflicting emotions. She did not hate Jake. There was sadness for the father Noah could have known, the man who chose control over compassion, leverage over love. She mourned the boy inside him, trapped by wounds she could never heal. But she refused to carry his weight any longer. That burden had been lifted the day Noah stood up and spoke the truth. One evening, Emma found Noah gazing out the window, his expression distant. "Mom," he said softly, "do you think Dad ever wanted to be different?" Emma swallowed the lump in her throat. She sat beside him, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. "I don't know, sweetheart, but what I do know is that you're nothing like him. You're brave, honest, and full of love. That's what matters." Noah leaned into her, and for a moment, the weight of the past lifted from them both. They were broken but healing, bruised but unbroken. Years later, Emma would look back on this chapter as the turning point, not just a fight for custody, but a battle to reclaim their lives and rewrite their story. A story not defined by pain or silence, but by courage, truth, and the fierce bond between a mother and her son. Sometimes life's harshest endings are beginnings in disguise. And in that fragile hope, Emma and Noah found a freedom worth fighting for. What part of Emma and Noah's journey touched you the most? How do you think silence and truth shape the stories we live? If this story moved you, type 100 in the comments. Tell us, where are you watching from? Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for watching Life Stories.